Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Artificers Guild. Articast. Hope you guys are having a fantastic week. We have a lot of stuff that we're talking about on today's episode, so without further ado, we're just going to go right into it. Hope you enjoy. Today we're going to be talking about it's one of those things where it's not like massive news, right? But it's the type of news that you get that kind of trickles out, especially when a company like Valve is at the head. We have a list of card art that was copyrighted by Valve, and this is important because it seems to be just a bunch of cards, like the names of cards. There's no images, like we don't actually have the images that were copyrighted because that's not quite how that works. However, we got all the names for the cards, and there's like 100+ cards here that all got copyrighted, which is pretty big deal. So we're just gonna talk through them. I'm gonna put the list of them on the screen while we're talking about them. So while you guys are viewing, you can kind of sort through them and think about these on your own. But we're just gonna discuss some of them for a bit because this is definitely the biggest thing that's going on right now in the artifact hype world. So you guys are kind of just looking at this list right now too, I'm sure. What is like your what is like the biggest card that stands out to you right now?
Just before we go into it, all I'm saying is get your tinfoil hats on, guys, because we're not just going to show you that Meepo's here and Agadams is here, like content that's already been created. We're not going to try to replicate that. I noticed something straight off the bat. Disciple of Nevermore, which means presumably Nevermore, Shadow Fiend, right?
Right.
Disciple of Nevermore Creep. So already we're seeing something that Shadow Fiend just doesn't do at all in Dota, which means his hero concept is going to be he's going to be retained as a demon lord, but like he's going to do something completely different. He's going to have spawns of his own that are creep cards, which means presumably he could be a green hero, right? Green Shadow Fiend. That sounds pretty cool.
Does that sound pretty cool? I wonder if if you guys aren't familiar with like the lore of Dota, so like Shadow Fiend is a soul collector. As a demon, that's what he does. He goes around and collects souls, and it's kind of hinted at that Shadow Fiend also is like a slave to a greater master. I wonder if this is kind of like, well, if you're familiar with Shadow Demon's lore, his lore is that he indoctrinates people. So I wonder if they're going to kind of have a similar concept applied to Shadow Fiend as well for this game's lore, or the greater lore of Dota, that he kind of like, it's like a indoctrinated slave or something like that. I think that would be really cool, though. Kind of just like extensions to his lore, or it's like a conquered soul that he uses in combat, that type of thing, to change him around. Because otherwise, like, how do you adapt Shadow Fiend in the Dota context to this game? I guess you could have something like Moxie, where you just like that's from Pokemon. I make a lot of Pokemon references in this. I don't know why. It just happens. But that when you kill stuff, you get more attack. It could be something like that, reflecting how souls work in Dota. But his other skills don't really like translate super well, right? So like just reimagining how the hero works could be a really big thing that happens in this game for Shadow Fiend.
I think something that would be really easy for to translate over though would be Presence of the Dark Lord, right? It's very easy, just -1 armor to like all adjacent enemies to him or something.
Just to be super general, I can't wait to see Artifact. Obviously, gonna have to make a lot of big changes to heroes to make them just make them different from the Dota version of them and make them unique. So like seeing the fact that like Shadow Fiend, there's a creep named after a spell he has. I can't wait to see more stuff like that where just like weird things get thrown in that we didn't expect based on the lore of the hero.
Well, and like this is something that I was kind of thinking of too. Is when you said that like you could translate his armor aura, is that like I wonder if they're kind of worried about like stepping on some abilities or items' toes, right? So like that ability in Dota already is very similar to Assault Cuirass as an item, right? Like the minus aura for that. So like maybe they already have that as a concept on like an item or a different spell, so they're like, well, maybe we don't want to go that route of having redundancies in the game, so like let's just not do that. Plus, like, I mean, with infinite deck sizes, you run into another problem too, that like, well, you have Shadow Fiend, who maybe has this minus armor aura, and then you also have like an item card that does the same thing. All of a sudden, not only is it like a redundancy that it does the same thing, but stacked on top of each other, that could be like something that's really broken, right? So I wonder if that's like a big issue that they're having right now with developing the game, is like with infinitely sized decks, you run into so many situations where too many of one thing causes a huge problem for balance. That being said, I mean, we gotta mention it. Um, there'd be more than one of something. So it is confirmed that Meepo will be part of at least this base set that's coming in, right? And it was something that I was kind of like, I don't know if they'll do Meepo right away, right? Because like the hero just is like got a lot to him. But no, this definitely confirms that there will be Meepo, and he is designed in the fashion that there will be multiple Meepos just chilling around. Because on the list they have Meepo 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's kind of cool. I really like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and we
re-
already have go ahead.
I just wonder how, like, if you have Meepos on multiple boards and one dies, do they all die? Because that just seems like such a weird balancing thing. Like in a card in Dota, it makes sense because like you have to micro to keep them alive. But in a card game where there's like hardly anything you can do to keep it alive when your opponent's like if it's your opponent's spell, it's your opponent's turn and they just cast like a 8 damage nuke, just screw it and all of them die. It just seems like such a weird interaction in a card game, but I can't wait to see how they pull it off, honestly.
Yeah, because we already have something else in here. That's the Divided We Stand spell. So he has an ability, and obviously Divided We Stand within Dota, as everyone knows, just basically gives you the next Meepo when you level it up, or spawns all of the Meepos. So again, redundancy, or maybe like doing the same type of thing that is directly in Dota, or maybe Meepo here could get reimagined a little bit as well.
Well, and I don't. Yeah, I see that on here, but then I don't see like poof detailed, and I think imagining poof and artifact is like such an easy thing to do, right? So maybe like the meepos can go into different lanes, which makes sense, right? And then poof just brings one meepo to the other one, right? Puts them right next to it, just like it does in Dota, and maybe does damage if that's like needed for balancing purposes. But I don't see that in here, so I don't know. Maybe they decided to go a different direction than that. But it's something I'm kind of like really excited for, because like I said, I didn't really think it was gonna be like in, like right away. I thought it might be something they try to tackle later in an expansion, but it just didn't feel like something that was like super um I don't know, like super card game friendly. I mean, there's concepts kind of like this in other card games where it's like a card just duplicates itself over and over. Um, Super guys, some guys who really like to get in here, come to mind.
Oh jeez. Rest in peace, Grim Patron decks.
Right? If Meepo works that way, where it's like, I don't know, like something happens and then another Meepo comes in, I really hope there's a reference to that. Blizzard, please don't sue Valve, but it would be hilarious if there was a get in here. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised that Valve like went after that right away, especially like seeing some of these other ones too. It doesn't necessarily mean the hero is going to be in there. Maybe just their spell is named here, but like March of the Machines is in this league. Like, what is Tinker? Is Tinker in this? Like, Tinker doesn't really feel like that friendly of a concept to port over, you know?
So something I'm really excited about, noticed this very early on, is we get their Valve has decided that they're going to expand on the lore they introduced in the Dueling Fates update with Dark Willow, because I see a card here that's called Jasper Daggers, and Jasper Circle is I'm not gonna get this 100% correct because I'm not making loregasm videos for a living, but the Jasper Circle is what I believe to be like some sort of like, I guess, like control, like like control ring of like leaders or like crime ring or something like that in the city that Dark Willow comes from. Is that, do you guys remember if that's correct?
I don't know if it's a city she's from, but it's like a worldwide like criminal
Mm.
organization. Because we know like
And
Bounty
her
Hunter and
father's,
Ricky has worked for them in the
yeah,
past.
and her father, Willow's father, is part of the Jasper Circle. So Jasper Daggers could pull references to a lot of different characters, like you said, Ricky and Bounty being included in there, and then the same thing. But it just gives us an insight into things that have been only like briefly mentioned as of
Well,
thus
and
far.
even more going off of that, like Dark Willow stuff. There's like a Roseleaf Rejuvenator creep, which Roseleaf is that's I think that's where Dark Willow's from. Pretty sure Roseleaf, or it's a place she's been. I know she mentions it because somewhere in my brain.
Revtel.
Who?
She's from Revtel. Is the thing in the lore.
Oh no, no, okay. Wasn't Roseleaf like the large battle that happened between like Axe and Legion's groups, and then like Triumph's protector and his people came out of the woodwork and like wrecked everybody? Because I remember,
I think so.
yeah, I think I remember that from a loregasm. Loregasm is the basically the Dota Bible. If you guys are confused what we're referencing here, Loregasm is a series by Sir Action Slacks, and they're long form content, but they are fantastic. He delves a lot deeper into the lore of Dota, which is good because a lot of times in Dota the dots are just not connected, which hopefully this game helps with. But he details a lot more of the lore there. Anyways, in one of the episodes, I think he talked a little bit about Roseleaf, right? And I believe what Roseleaf is there was a confrontation between a group led by Axe and the Legion, led by Tresden. And what happened is it happened in like a forest or something, and Treant Protector and his people, the Treants, were there, and they came out of the woodwork and started wrecking people. And it was like a massacre, basically. So that's a cool little reference that I assume that it's going to be a Treant type of related unit then, right? Because Roseleaf is like his people where they lived, and I mean Treant Protector is also in these leaks, so we know he's definitely part of the game, anyways. So
Okay, I want to
Oh,
bring up a spell to you guys. You go to number 27. The spell is just called Clear the Deck spell. What in the world does this do? What could this do based on the title?
oh, jeez.
Is this just a
what it
destroy your
does,
opponent's deck spell? Are we Hearthstone now?
what it does is you just you get up from the table, you grab your opponent's deck, and you just throw it across the room, and you tell them the game's over.
Okay.
No, but I don't know. Maybe it's, I don't know. When you say like clear the deck, I mean you can interpret it in the card game deck way, right? But you can also interpret it like a ship deck. And I mean Tidehunter and Kunkka are in this. We know Tidehunter definitely is. I'm sure Kunkka probably at some point will make an appearance. So like I don't know, maybe it's something more like ship related, like maybe it like moves everybody, or it like returns everybody to their hand or something, kind of like a vanish-esque spell, that type of thing.
That makes more sense now. I did not think at all in terms of boats. I was just hoping that we had Rin in this game.
Oh, jeez. To extend on the Roseleaf and the battle that was between the Mogul Khan and the Legion commander. Tresden's Standards is also a spell card that is listed right next to Chain Protector and Tinker. So we do have other references to the leader of the Legion commander. So it looks like we will be getting a lot of insight into things that we haven't seen so far, instead of just like, oh, here's X hero with their spells. They're gonna take us in a lot of different directions here.
Yeah. Well, and I only can assume Tristan Standards is a card that, like, in the text it says has to be 6 foot, has to have a really nice jawline, um, good with kids, has to love his mom.
Yikes.
But no, in all seriousness, I agree. I think it's this really shows that they're taking the whole entire idea of hey, let's take it in a lot of different directions than just let's port abilities. Um, and I think this not only is like on heroes, um, but also on items as well, right? So like, um, you see like Aghanim Sanctum and like Arcane Assault. Oh, that's a spell. My bad, my bad. But like Barbed Mail and all these kind of interesting spins on item names, right? I think this is kind of like, I don't know. It's interesting that they're also doing this thing where they don't want to just port the items straight over.
So we do have an Aghanim card put in here. So Aghanim Sanctum is put here, and it doesn't say spell, and it doesn't feel like this is going to be a hero. So I think we have another item that is associated with Aghanim, presumably, unless it's something different. But I like a status effect or something. But I presume this is going to be another item associated with Aghanim, which kind of makes him the closest thing we have to like a weaponsmith. Which, even though he's like supposed to be the grandest mage, now if he's producing both his scepter and sanctum, unless maybe it's a renamed version of the same thing, we've got this really great thing where we're leading into another character that's constantly referenced, right? Because isn't he referenced in relation to Rubik a few times?
Oh, he's Rubik's dad.
Oh,
Yeah.
Actually, his dad?
Oh yeah, he's
Daddy
Rubik's dad.
Okay.
Rubik has a line, I think, it's just one of his lines where you like spam click on him, where he says like, "If only I had inherited my dad's skill of construction" or something. Because Aghanim, what he basically does is he's like a artifact smith, right? He makes like things like the Aghanim scepter. Like the Aghanim scepter was the like peak of his career, but he's made like a lot of different items, which is why like this idea that there's a sanctum or other things associated with him makes sense, because he had a very, very long career of making stuff, and Rubik is his son.
Nice. I don't know if there's too much to say about it yet. I'm glad that Aghanim is being included, and that he's not just going to be like brushed under in the wake of new lore like the Jasper Circle and the Battle of Roseleaf and stuff like that, and the fight between stuff like the fight between Bristle and Tusk is also being referenced. This is another one I wanted to go into very quickly. It was a card called the Grand Melee, and we do actually have a picture of this card art. We can probably include it on screen.
Yep.
It's somewhere. And what do you guys think this great brawl is gonna be like? Because in my mind, the first thing that I go to is brawl in Hearthstone, right? Which takes every minion on the board and follows them all into a giant brawl, and only one of them comes out. But I'm really hoping that that type of thing is not in the game. So I guess my question is twofold. Do you guys think that this will employ, or like, what do you think this card will employ? And then do you think something like that, like Brawl, would be available and healthy in our game?
I hope it's not like Brawl. I hope something like Brawl is not added, just because I think it's bad. It's a bad example of RNG. Off the top of my head, I feel like a decent way to implement that would just be like have the minions attack a minion in front of it. So there's like another action combat phase, like mid turn.
That's actually
That'd be
exactly
cool.
what I was about to say. Is like basically it's a spell that causes a attacking phase early, and then another one happens. When appropriately an attacking phase would usually happen, but like it just triggers an early one. So like if you would get as a player, you get a huge benefit out of two happening in a row. You can make that happen. I think that would be like really cool. Plus, I mean, the card is already really cool because it has techies on it. So that's pretty cool. techies is confirmed, man. That's pretty cool.
Oh no, there's gonna be random mines in my lane. Play minion and instantly dies.
Yeah.
The 0/1 mine just sitting there. It's on the
And-
enemy side of the board too. For kicks.
Lamau. And I don't know how. I mean, techies would be some man. He's one of those heroes where like you could think of like a bunch of different ways he could be implemented into this game, and all of them are kind of like, man, he'd be just as cancer an artifact as he is in Dota.
Don't worry, even if he gets put in artifact, he won't be put in the competitive mode for like 4 years anyway.
Yeah. And when they do, it won't be like they will change him at all. They'll just be like, "Ah, yeah, just put him in. Just put him in." And you'll be like, "Okay, well, why didn't you put him in earlier if you thought he was fine?" Okay. Anyways, enough Dota salt. I actually was kind of interested, so I quickly Googled it. Um, so like this item of Aghanim's called Aghanim Sanctum. So like I was like, maybe my old English skills are pretty bad, and like Sanctum can also mean like I don't know a piece of armor or something. But like just googling it, I guess Sanctum only like means what you think it would, like a sacred place. So like I don't know, like all the spell cards are clearly marked with spell, but I don't know how this could be anything else unless maybe there's a different concept here. Like we've mentioned before, like cards that affect the lane, like change the dynamic of the lane. So like maybe those aren't necessarily tagged with the spell word, and they are, something that changes what the lane's doing. So like it changes the lane into Aghanim Sanctum, a different type of battlefield or something, and has like different stats. Like Aghanim is well known for creating Aghanim Scepter. Maybe it's something where like abilities are upgraded in some way, or mana costs are affected, or something interesting like that, where you can just like change the battlefield and it just like tilts the dynamic or the normal playing field a little bit.
If this doesn't initially seem like very well explained, just imagine if anyone's familiar with Gwent, like the hazard effects that can be placed on board that do damage and like clearing hazards, but also with a positive side to it. I could see it doing something like reducing blue spell cost by 1 or something.
I
It'd
feel
be
like
Oh, go ahead.
you I feel like oh wait, okay. I thought that was an official card. I get confused with the card we did last week, the OD where it reduces the blue cards. I'm like, wait, isn't that already a card? I got
Yeah.
so mind flooded.
It
Okay,
was
not
so
actual
good.
card.
It was so good that it seems
Yeah,
like a real
so good.
card.
I thought actual card.
I have to say too, something that I really love. Um, so it's distracting a little bit from the idea of like changing the lane, which I think is really cool, and I think that these cards definitely kind of like back it up a little bit. But I kind of like we have like these really like complex names and like proper names, but then we also kind of have some cheeky or cheesy ones. So there's one called "And One for Me," so that's kind of cool. And like you can kind of imagine some fun stuff that would do, and seems a little bit of a memey name, but I also like that it has a little bit of a lighter tone to stuff, right? Because like I mean, we've seen the success in other card games that having a lighter tone sometimes is fine for just the card game genre. It kind of melds like really well with how the gameplay kind of is. So I like that it's not all going to be like I mean I love lore. I love taking stuff seriously, but I also think it's kind of fun when you have a few funny jokes in there, especially when you have a few light-hearted characters like Dota does. There's a few heroes that are just jokesters. So plus a card like that, I mean, and one for me. I mean, there's so many different things that could really do.
First thing I thought of was a Lore Walker Cho from Hearthstone. Just you get your opponent gets a copy of any spell. Like the opponent gets a copy from any spell you play. That kind of thing. But that card could actually be like anything, so
Yeah, I could see it doing something like I don't know, maybe like this would be crazy. What if it's like for items? Like you play it and like the last item that your enemy bought, you also get one. That would be really fun. That would be really cool, actually.
Our tinfoil hats are really far on for this one. This name's a little
Right.
ambiguous, I think.
Yeah. Main point is not to speculate what it does, but mostly just I think it's kind of cool that they have a sense of humor to this too, and I think it's that those little things, right? Because like I think that having a little bit of a joker or lighter tone actually helps games like survive for a longer time. So I like that.
something that I like to go through and look at these is that there's a bunch of just one word we presume are heroes that are gonna be in the game. Like number 75 is Kana. We haven't seen anyone's like this, and I saw one. There's just one called Oath. One word Oath, no spell. I don't know what those have to be heroes, right?
Oath.
Oath is number 94.
Oh
I
yeah, I
don't know
see it
if
now.
I don't know if Oath would be a hero, but we do have some of the other ones that are heroes in here that we haven't seen in
Relics.
Dota before.
Rix.
So we know that Rix is a hero. We know this because there was a card art, or there was like an art design leak, as well as Dark Willow has a line where she asks Clockwork if he knows of. I don't think that's Rix. Actually, that's Mozzie. Sorry, Mozzie.
She's a keen
Rix.
folk, yeah.
Yeah, Mozzie is the Keen Folk. Rix is also revealed as a hero through. Trying to think here. We've actually seen some Rick's art. It looks somewhat like what was the name of the creep from the comic book? The
Um,
comics?
I seem
That
to I
wasn't
don't
Rick's,
remember.
was it?
I seem to remember he's like a little. He's like the camp in the jungle, like the wolf people that throw spears.
Mm.
He's kind of like I think he's of that race, like the wolfish type of people. But something I want to point out, right? So remember a few like 2 episodes ago now, when we learned about Ravenhook, and then we talked about him, and we are like, oh no, he's actually a creep. So he's on this list, right? And just like all the other creeps, he's labeled with the creep tag. However, like Oath, he's not, right? And like maybe Oath is like just like a weird hero name, right? And that's not too different from Dota. I mean, like we have a bunch of heroes that just have weird one word names, right? I mean, even on this list there's Lion, right? So like what does Lion have to do with actual lions and stuff? It's just a name, right? You know, that's just his pseudonym. That's what he goes by. So I could see Oath being like a hero, right? I mean, we have also some other wacky ones on here, like Prelix. That sounds like a hero. Seems a little like a different name, but maybe that's just because we're not used to it.
Do you think do you think things like Prelix could also be a weapon, possibly an item?
Oh, that's true. There's no items on or item tags on here, so actually a lot of these could be items. You're right about that. I didn't really think about that. Oath could be an item, actually.
That's
I
true.
mean, it'd be a weird one, but it could be an item. Yeah.
Oath, I feel like could be one. Like think some of these cards that aren't labeled as spells could be like the type of thing where a card appears out of another card, right? So you cast a spell and think like something like Oath comes out of said spell, right? And is played on the map or is added to your hand, right?
Right.
Something along that lines.
So like cards that you'd never like have in your deck, they're just accessible
They're
through
yeah.
other mechanics. Yeah,
Mm.
I definitely think that could definitely be a thing. I mean, we already know that there's I mean lane creeps, I seriously doubt that you'll be able to have lane creeps in your deck, but I know that they can be summoned by a spell that we already know about, and of course they're naturally put in the game. So it's a concept we already know is there. Plus, like I don't know how card game or electronic card games really function heavily off of the here's an additional card mechanic, you know. So, going off of the having some cards that are kind of funny, this one really stuck out to me, and I had to put on my best anti mage voice to do this one. Enough magic. there's an actual spell that's just called enough magic. And I love that.
It's got the little exclamation mark along with it too, so you know
Yeah.
it's a declaration here.
I really hope that when you play that you just get a really good anti-mage just yelling.
Anti-mage. We don't actually have anti-mage on the list, do we?
No.
I don't believe so.
So I assume it might just be like a maybe like anti-mage. Maybe okay. There's gonna be some heroes that are not on this list that could be in the game on initial release, but maybe it's just a spell that's like not connected to a hero that's just out there because like this is more theory crafting or just guessing what cards do, but um it could be something like a really big silence, like on the lane or that type of thing, or like a mass dispel, like where it gets rid of lane effects or buffs that have been given to heroes. Your classic run of the mill card game, like get rid of stuff, type of card. So like having it be attached to anti-mage could feel like a little, like anti-mage would be too required if that happens, right? Because like mass silence or dispel is just kind of something that people should always have the option to go for without maybe filling out one of their hero slots. My
Other
biggest
lore things. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna finish thing. My one hope for this card is please have anti-mage yell enough magic when it's played. Even if it's not connected to anti-mage, just have somebody yell enough magic or
It could
something
also be
like that.
Silencer.
Oh, that's true.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's true.
it works with
Silencer, please
Silencer's
be in this
lore.
game.
He's not listed on the thing either, but which makes him just equally as likely, because what was the name? I don't remember the name of this either. I'm gonna stop trying to reference names from the Loregasm that I don't remember. But the like castle that was filled with all the anti-magic people that were working together.
Right.
There's some
That
monastery.
Silencer was like a genetic prodigy of, like they purebred him. Yeah.
And they hired AM out of it. Other people
Yeah.
have done work with it. More things that came from the Dueling Fate update. So anyone who's been out of Dota for a little bit, if you go look at the Dueling Fate update where Pangolier and Darkwiller were added late 2017, they just really dove into this whole, we're actually going to create something out of the lore of this game, like we're back in 2013 or something. And speaking of 2013, we have Smeevil Arms Master Creep and Smeevil Blacksmith.
I
So
saw
we
that
might
and got
finally
happy.
be getting the Grieveling, right? We might finally be getting the Grieveling back, as Smeevils and Grievels and such are finally making a comeback. Other than what those little guys that are running around in your deck in the game, those are Smeevils, right?
They
They're not
called them
Grievels,
imps.
Oh,
They called
call
them imps, but I don't know, man. They just kind of when I saw them, my first reaction to was, "Oh, look, Smeevils are back," and I was kind of excited because like it's funny. It makes you really think. But like I'm kind of nostalgic for back in the days when Smeevils were like the couriers for TI and stuff, and like all the TI couriers were kind of like fun little Smeevils doing weird stuff. But I had to say, just for nostalgia purposes, I'm kind of really glad that they're back in the Dota limelight. You know, they're here at the forefront again because I always thought they were kind of a cool little design. They're like little monkeys. It's kind of cool.
Neither of those terms are copyrighted by Blizzard, are they?
Smeevil and Greevil? No, these were Valve inventions. I think, yeah. As far as I remember, no Blizzard game ever had those. So these were Dota things, specifically Dota 2.
So another thing, a couple other lore references that are in here via some of the cards is so in Dota we have the item Heart of Tarask. And Heart of Tarask's little flavor text says, preserve heart of an extinct monster. It bolsters the bearer's fortitude. And we have a card in here that's called Rite of Tarask, which could be some really great insight into what the heck type of extinct monster gives you 45 strength and 500 health. So that's pretty cool on its own. And then we have Sister of the Veil Creep, which I'm very excited for because the PA Oracle lore is one of my favorites. And the Sister of the Veil situation, the idea that there could be like creeps don't just mean lane creeps, obviously. There's so many types of creeps in here, but like this one alone just means like it's literally like could just be a weak PA that comes out, right? Like a PA like clone sort of thing that's just straight stat line. I'm really glad they're just diving into like every single corner of the lore that has been just like peaked at over like the last decade.
Getting away from the lore a little bit, there's a spell just called Gank.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, hey.
Like, I don't. Okay. Artifacts, sure.
You
Gank.
know, this is more making stuff up, but how cool would it be if gank is like you target it on a hero and it like moves other heroes from different lanes? So it's like similar to how you understand Dota, right? So like heroes move around the map and stuff to attack people in a gank. So like maybe it's something kind of interesting like that. But I like that it's kind of weird. It's like there's lore, and then also with like spells like gank, they're referencing kind of like the Dota meta game, right? Because like I think maybe gank's referenced by heroes in the game maybe a little bit, but it's
Thanks
definitely
for standing still, ganker.
right.
Oh,
But it's
interesting.
mostly a community term, right? That's been in the community since like Jesus, you know, like pre pre-2010, like way
Since
back in Dota
Jesus.
1. Right. This has just been a term in our community forever. And I mean, there's like other ones too. I think there's like a spell in here called pick off. So like that's a term that the community uses, just pick people off before a big fight. It's kind of cool that they're also going to be lightly referencing community terms. So I like that. I think that's a good thing to do, especially when you have like such a rich community background like Dota, right? This game has like such a long community history that little references the way our community talks and all that is something I think is really well done.
I don't know if we've been pointed it out yet, but OD will actually it's a confirmed hero as of now. That's cool.
Mm. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think another term that they need to reference from the community is NA Math or NA Dota. NA Dota is a lane modifying card.
It just means one of your heroes leave every like 2 turns and is replaced with a different hero.
Joins the enemy's team.
jeez.
And then he'll come back in 2 turns.
Oh,
No,
fuck.
that's the RTZ cycle. It's a lane modifying card called RTZ cycle.
Good Jesus. We do have a cool concept here that I have no idea what this could be. We can get a little headcanoning with this one. And then we have 4 cards that are called Path of the Blank. So we have Path of the Bold, Path of the Cunning, Path of the Dreamer, and Path of the Wise. I was talking to Isaac earlier, and we were thinking maybe this could be like the 4 colors for the cards. But at the same time, if these are card arts, then they should be probably associated with something in game. What do you guys think this could be? Like a choose one kind of thing from Druid Hearthstone, or something else completely?
Oh, go ahead,
You can
Isaac.
go out. Okay, I'll go. Yes. I feel like it'd be cool if it's like 1 per color and it just matched up. I don't know exactly how well like the names line up with like what we know so far about each archetype, but I think that'd be the most interesting thing to do.
I think so too. Whether it's like something that you trigger from one card that gives you like a choice, or they're each their own like card that you can just throw in your deck, and then like you like play it or something. I don't know, but I definitely think it correlates. In my opinion, correlates very, very strongly with the types, right? So you have Path of the Bold. I think that's definitely red heroes. Path of the Cunning, definitely black heroes. Um, Path of the Dreamer, that's the one where I'm like a little like, I don't know. Path of the Wise, though, definitely seems like it could be just a blue concept, like spellcasters are wise. So at least like 3 of them kind of make sense. I don't really understand Path of the Dreamer, but maybe they just opted for that because like what other terms would you use for the green? Like Path of the Path of the
Path to help
Summoner,
your friends out. Path of the big many men.
Path of the Popular Boy. Got a lot of
Yeah,
friends.
obviously.
Path
So
of Jesus Christ. Why is this guy playing Zulok? Fuck.
right. So like maybe that's just the term they went with because it's kind of really hard to describe what a green card does in like a cool adjective.
I just thought it would be, like most of the green heroes we initially saw were gonna be like nature, like nature's prophet. This is what I just presumed, right? But now that we see things like Nevermore producing creeps and potentially being green hero, not confirmed, but potentially being a green hero, like I think that maybe is less well descriptive now. Doesn't say it as well, but not sure.
Yeah, I think it's just my guess is I'm just gonna hazard a guess and say that this is like gonna be the green equivalent of it. They just didn't really have a good way to put it, right? Because how could you? Like it's just hard. But
Something else I was thinking in terms of these paths though is that when you go into like something like Gwent, you choose a faction to make your deck out of, and like this could be the type of thing where there's like card art associated with the 4 archetypes, and when you go to add, like say we have the deck restriction, we're not sure if this is a thing, but if there's like deck restriction to like 2 types of heroes, or like 3, you'd have to be like choose up to 3 of these paths, right? Path of the bold, path of the dreamer, path of the cunning, path of the some 4th thing, wise. There we go. And so that it could be that thing where you're like selecting your deck archetype, and there's just like cool pictures that are associated with the 4 types.
I think that's definitely a possibility. Um, Personally, I'm always gonna go for the path of the wise. I think it just describes me the best. So
Oh, for sure.
Path
Path of the humble. Yeah.
I think you guys are both really well described with Path of the Dreamer, you know?
Hard yikes.
Hard yikes.
Push this into something else. To push this into something else, I noticed a nice similarity between Dota, with the way Dota handle items, and the way Artifact seems to be handling items here. Because we can see a lot of things that you can just presume by default are items, like broadsword, chainmail, things like that, right? And what I see from this is it seems like weaker items, like early game items, have like very dull basic names. Chainmail, broadsword, just like in Dota. But your advanced items that are just like end game, they're like these cool mythical relics, right? Have like cool names. So you can associate the fact that there's both item names like chainmail and names like adoring wingfall hammer here. You're not gonna name something adoring wingfall hammer if it's like the equivalent of a mithril hammer in Dota, right? But it shows that it at least suggests that there's some progression to items in the game where it's not really like you're saving up gold for a while to get like more progression than we thought, right? Not just like you're saving up your gold from killing creeps and heroes in an artifact round to get like one big item at a time. There's maybe some build up and your items can build into other items like in Dota, right?
Right, which I think it's like actually kind of a cool concept that there's like a progression to items. There's like a progression system in every match, like how you build a character up. And I think it's good too because like I mean you can have some really epic names for items and like just like you said, you wouldn't want like your wimpy items to be named like, you know, Wingfall Adoring Hammer or Adoring Wingfall Hammer, but at the same time you wouldn't want your epic items to be named Chainmail. You know, like you'd be like, oh no, he just dropped Chainmail. What am I gonna do? So I do agree. I think it's kind of it's cool that there seems to be like definitely a progression system with the items that's gonna be like showing up in every game. Something I want to point out too, which I just saw this one. Um, there is a card called Golden Ticket, and it's not a spell.
I saw
So
that as well.
yeah, so maybe it's an item or something. But lore wise, Willy Wonka in the same universe as Dota confirmed.
Confirmed.
Damn it. I'm gonna make a
Chocolate
chocolate
factory and
factory
all.
reference too.
Yeah, sorry, I had to beat you to it. It was too easy. That was like low hanging fruit. I had to take it. But that's kind of really cool. That's not anything I've ever heard of in Dota is a golden ticket. So this is a brand new concept, and I'm sure there could be some really cool thing in the gameplay, like inherit a chocolate factory or something like that. It's real game
Stop.
changer.
Yikes.
Yikes! Yeah. But being
Turn
more
the enemy into
serious,
a blueberry.
I seriously do like kind of this, you know, it's good to reference Dota's lore, but I think it's also good to make new lore like this, where this will probably definitely have like its own story behind it and its own concept. So I think expanding the horizons of the lore, not just filling out existing lore, is a really nice part of this game that I think they're already trying to take up.
I just found the coolest thing. Are you guys ready for this?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2 items associated with, I presume they're items. One of them could be a spell, one of them is probably an item. It's called Clazoreem Hourglass and Clazoreem Meddling, right? So I didn't know what this was. I had to Google it, and I went straight to the Dota wiki because it was there. And
Faceless Void.
Clazoreem
Yep.
is a realm outside of time named after the god Claus. It is characterized by its infinite halls, etc., etc. It is associated with Faceless Void and Puck. Now, I was like, okay, so that's about it. That gives us the realm. So this hourglass could just be something associated. But the hourglass actually exists in the Dota universe already. It's an hourglass with mystical properties formerly belonged to Dark Terror, Faceless Void, but was stolen by Dark Willow. The hourglass is capable of producing effect on time when turned over, and Dark Willow has a response that says one day the Faceless Void will realize this thing is missing, and when it happens, I'll turn it over before he has a chance to do anything about it. So I feel like we've got some really cool like stop time, time portal esque types of situations that could come up in this game, and some really cool like screwing with time, even though we don't explicitly have Dark Terror or Faceless Void listed. We have some of the byproducts of Faceless Void being put into the and more things that came straight out of the Dueling Fates.
I almost feel like all the lore in Dueling Fates was like the artifact team being like, we're about to put this stuff in the game. You should put this stuff in Dota. And the Dota team was like, we have heroes that are coming out, and then artifacts like, cool, put all the lore in their lines.
Which honestly just makes Dark Willow the most exciting hero in Dota for more reasons other than the fact that she's completely broken.
She got nerfed, man. Come on. But yeah, no,
Cooldowns.
Right. Well, I love her lore, man. It's always like the coolest thing when you're playing that hero and you just like have a random line that triggers and you're like, "Oh, wow. This is a game with lore."
Whoa, game has backstory.
No one's ever done that before.
Wow, very innovative.
But
Going back to the whole anti-mage silencer thing, is an item just called the Magicking Maul? So is it just like an axe that when you hit them with it, they can't? There's no magic anymore. Nope, no magic for them.
that'd be kind of cool. Like you just equip it on your hero, and then when they attack people, they like dispel them or silence them. That would be very, very cool. Anti-Mage's new favorite item.
He has set down his glaives for
just
for
a
a
maul.
large mace. This just completely goes against the way the hero traditionally like does damage, right? It's like fast hits and like very swift, and he's just got this
spinning
giant
around.
fucking double-sized maul.
He blinks up behind random characters, just glocks them in the head with his maul. Enough magic! But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys see any other cards that really catch your eye? Because like a lot of these kind of seem like, yeah, they seem pretty run of the mill, and it feels like a little hard to guess what they're gonna do until we know a little bit more. And I'm sure a lot of them too kind of just like fill the gaps you need in a card game, right? Because you need like item that gives your hero a little more damage, or removes a unit, or just basic card game elements. But I mean, do you guys see any other ones you kind of want to bring up and talk about?
Just to refresh my memory, Dota 2 nerds. What's Grazing Shot? Is that Windrunner's spell, or am I?
No heroes have that, but I
I
remember
believe
there.
was a Windrunner.
Right, there was artwork that showed like Windrunner using it.
Okay.
So, or Wind Ranger.
Over like a Hellbear, right?
Yeah, it was like, yeah. You're right. I wonder if that's like a false swipe esque mechanic. Like you can damage them, but it won't kill them. That type of thing.
Hmm.
That'd be kind of cool.
We should
But
put the
I
card
saw
off
that, and I
on for
wondered
that
if
one too.
Windrunner was in the.
Oh, yeah,
was
I'll
in
show
the
that.
cards.
But yeah, so yeah, that could be a Wind Runner / Ranger. Wind Ranger is what Valve likes to call her, right?
I don't.
Yeah,
I
okay.
forgot.
She's got a specific name we have to call her. You can't call her Windrunner. No. But it could be one of her cards, or it could just be like one of those concepts again where like it's associated with the hero, but it's not necessarily their card. Where it's just like a basic card that kind of needs to be able to be played by anybody in the game.
I think it would be really cool if they put some of the heroes in this game based on their original Dota 1 names rather than like just calling them Tinker, you know? But I mean, if as long as that's a thing that like that's already becoming a byproduct out of like Nevermore's creeps and stuff like that, right? So it is getting introduced, but it'd be cool to see some of the heroes being referred to by that. Another card that I saw was a Lost in Time spell, which just brings me back to this Clauserine thing, and I think like maybe it could be a byproduct where like it's like something akin to like Nightmare, where a hero or a creep card is just off the map for a turn or two.
That could be pretty cool. Like you just target something and it disappears from the lane for a turn and then comes back.
Like an aggressive phase shift on purpose, right? So the enemy has to be phase shift. They're just not on the map, or like they have like the unstable portal logo over them.
Or imagine if you could use that like defensively too, like offense or defensively. Like you just have a card that's about to die and you're like, oh, well, if I remove it for a turn and it comes back, the situation for it will be a lot more better. So it could be like one of those cool cards where you're like, oh, do I want to use this offensively or defensively? Which is always like such a fascinating concept for card games. Cards that are multifaceted. They do something, but also that concept can expand beyond just I use this to damage enemy. It can also be used for really unique plays and strategy building.
I think it says something that we can immediately guess what almost all of these cards do. Just
Right.
into the idea of this, how complex this game is
Yeah.
hopefully going to be.
I guarantee you we will be so far off on a lot of these cards and what
100%.
they do. Yeah.
But if we're right, I want like my name added to the bottom of the Oracle card when it gets put in. If any of these are right,
I don't
just like
I don't
Sean
think
got it
Oracle
right.
has I don't think Oracle has a lore name, so yeah, you can be his lore name, man. Congrats. um
The Oracle scene.
Seen the
Horse cow.
Oracle.
Horse cow. The Oracle. Oh fuck.
I want my name to be the actual title for Ogre Magi if we're doing this.
Don't they have a name?
I actually don't know, but um, I think we've kind of like looked at everything we can do with these. It's one of these hard things where it's like there's a lot of information here, and you could speculate over every little thing, but at the same time, you'd be kind of like running circles, and I guarantee you, like 90% of the things that people are going to speculate about these cards are just going to be wrong, right? But we just wanted to share some of the cooler things, like some of the more interesting things and the thoughts we had over these cards, and um, so that's just kind of what's been going on this week. That being said, I actually think that we're probably going to get a lot of news in the next week or so. Some people are saying that there might be another press conference at Valve, this time with like more casual streamers, just because people over at the Yogscast, mentioned that they're seeing Valve this weekend. So that lends people to believe that it's an artifact thing. That doesn't necessarily mean it, because none of them mentioned artifacts specifically, and Valve works on a lot of different projects. So, but there definitely could be more artifact news coming in the next week. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and we'll have some stuff to talk about in the future.
Like I said almost every time so far, Valve, please give us more content.
And the
Yeah.
beta.
Yeah,
That too.
give us the beta. Well, okay, let's do it. It's like a ransom thing. So you can do more content, or you can give us the beta.
Either, it's up to you.
Up to you. I know which one I'd prefer, but um, but do you guys have anything else you want to share?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, with that, let's wrap it up. We'll see you guys in another week or two.